Hey there. 4 years ago, I designed and built a Catio, and I put a video about the process on YouTube. And since then, I've been thinking about ways to improve it. So in this video, I'm going to go over 5 mistakes that I made when putting together my Catio. And this is going to be specific to my situation. I live in the Pacific Northwest, and my Catio is fully outdoors, so it gets rained on a lot. But hopefully there's something in here that will give you some ideas to improve your own project. Number 1, sanding and staining. My Catio took almost an entire summer to build, and most of that time, I would say 70% of that time, was spent sanding and staining the wood. And in retrospect, I wouldn't even bother. It was the least enjoyable part of the process, and it hasn't held up very well. Any part of it that has been exposed to a lot of rain is just a gray color at this point. It's the same thing that happens when you build a cedar fence. After a couple years, it just loses that nice wood color and turns gray. And that's the case with the Catio as well. So instead, I would suggest 2 options. One, if you don't have a ton of time to spend, just skip it. Only sand the rough edges that the cats actually come into contact with, which is almost nothing. And if you use a good quality cedar, then it should last 15, 20 years anyway. Or if you do have the time and you want it to look nicer and hold up a bit longer, then go ahead and sand. But instead of using tung oil or some other natural material that's not going to hold up in the rain very well, use primer and house paint. Just your regular house paint should last 8 to 10 years, depending on what you're using. It's going to look totally awesome. I've seen some really nice painted Catios. Number 2, Catify sooner. Let me tell you about the cat tower difference. First couple years, my cats were pretty lukewarm about their Catio. They always went straight up to this one spot, and I think this is really common. People let their cats out into their new Catio, and their cats are like, I don't care, I don't want to be out here. Well, after I put this cat tower right in the middle, and it's one that they were already used to, they spent a lot of time on it indoors, so their scent was already all over it. This is their new favorite spot. It's like their power spot. They spend a lot more time out here, and it made the Catio feel a lot more complete. So if your cats aren't engaging with the space as much as it seems like they should, keep trying new things. They might just want a different kind of perch or more scent soakers. They will warm up to it eventually. Number 3, don't use landscape fabric. This is going to be a bit of a rant, and this is really only if you are putting your Catio in your yard where grass is growing up against it. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't want my cats eating grass and dandelions and then coming inside and throwing it up immediately. So I decided to edge my Catio with landscape fabric. And after a year, it was completely overgrown with grass and dandelions anyway. And that's the problem with landscape fabric. It doesn't do what it's supposed to do. It's either permeable, so it has holes in it, so plants just grow through it anyway. And then it's a total pain to tear it out at that point because it's entangled with plant roots and it just comes off in little pieces. Or you can get the commercial grade non-porous kind that doesn't allow any water to go through it, so that leads to drainage issues and it messes up your soil health. So instead, I strongly recommend skipping the landscape fabric and use sheet mulch instead. And what that is layers of cardboard. You take the tape off, remove all of the labels, so it's just cardboard. Put that down against the ground, put mulch on top of that, and that's going to do a much better job of suppressing weeds. It does let water go through it, and it's going to last a few years, whereas the landscape fabric only lasts 1 year. You do have to redo it eventually, but it's much easier to deal with because then you don't have to tear out all of this non-biodegradable plastic. I actually sheet mulched my entire front yard. So this is not just a Catio thing, but whenever you're thinking you might want to put down landscape fabric, just do sheet mulch instead. It's much better. Number 4, minimize gaps. When I originally put down landscape fabric, I weighed it down with these scalloped edge paver stones, and that created this gap all along the bottom edge of the Catio, and those gaps were a major hotspot for bugs, mainly ants and potato bugs and earwigs. Now I don't have those pavers down anymore, so those gaps are gone, but I still have lots of gaps in between the walls of the Catio in certain spots, and you can see there's bugs hanging out in there. There's little spiders, there's earwigs. So you really want to be thinking about eliminating gaps as much as possible to cut down on the amount of bugs that are going to be hanging out in there. One thing you can do is caulk it. You can actually get color-matched wood-colored caulking, and so just run that along the edge of wherever you have gaps in your wood, and that's going to really cut down on the amount of bugs. Number 5, shelf lining. This is a hot topic everybody's thinking about. What are we going to put on top of those shelves to make a nice surface the cats want to be on? I stapled burlap to most of the shelves in here, thinking it'll make it easier for them to get a grip when jumping up. You can see there's still some staple holes left over. So that's true. It makes it easier for them to get a grip, but it doesn't make that much of a difference. I tore the burlap out of there after 3.5 years, and it was extremely nasty under there. It was just full of dirt and sand and bugs. Instead, I'm just going to go with bare wood from now on. It's much easier to clean. It's porous, so they can get a grip with their claws on it well enough. It's not a scent soaker like the burlap was a little bit, but you can find other ways of adding scent soakers like I did by adding their favorite cat tower. But there are a couple options I will put out there. If you get some of this sisal carpet and line your shelves with it, that might be a good option. But I wouldn't suggest that unless your shelves are protected from the rain, because otherwise they're going to get waterlogged and moldy. But if you do have your shelves that are protected from the rain, then some carpet like this Berber carpet or sisal carpet might be a good option. Another option I've seen that's pretty cool, if you have shelves that are exposed to the rain, instead of doing a flat wood shelf like this, you can get shelves that are long strips of wood. And that's great for rain exposure because then the water is just going to pass straight through those slats. That's it for this one. I hope you've gotten something useful out of this. If you have any ideas or experience you want to share, comment down below. I'm thinking about doing a Catio renovation project in a year or two. So if you want to see more of this type of content, let me know. Until then, see ya.